Hello. So, it's not going to be comprehensive. This is going to be a light tutorial on maximizing power in Megaton Musashi. We are going to start at the core of it on the customization screen. And we're going to start with your rogue or robot. Now, first things first. Depending where you are on the Megaton II difficulty scale, you will have different drops available to you. What I recommend is using the highest ranking thing available to you at the moment. For me, at Megaton rank 14, I have the ability, I have the ability to get Iconic Legendary 2 and Legendary 2 tiered items. And as you can see, I am using them and I have ranked them up as high as I can in my enhancement in enhancing. I have other iconic legendary 2s which I could also use for my robots and or rank myself up. General rule of thumb, if it has higher stats, it's probably better, unless you're doing something specific, such as a ranged weapon build. So this Musashi R is fantastic for ranged weapon and close range weapon, so I would use it for a shotgun setup. But the one I have currently wearing is special move damage up, which I am currently going for. So I'm using this one instead. As for weapons and equipment, you should always be using the thing that it is weak to the most. I know this sounds simple, and I know this is pretty obvious, but it helps a lot. As for modding your weapons and equipment and rogue with chips, I recommend crit percentage, as you can see here, and these will be flex slots as I call them. So this is currently amplifying the upper blade damage on my dual blades, but if I were to swap weapons, I would change these out for something else. You can also have another variety of other things, such as, but not limited to, in my humble opinion, evade boost saver, evasive shield, and evade attack time are also very useful. Evasive shield, very useful if you and evade attack time for boosting your personal damage, but your other rogues will not take advantage. That is it for the rogue. The motherboard. The motherboard. So this is chip evolution A, which drops from a later Megaton II difficulty. 100% of the time. You clear the boss, you get the board. Now, I'm going to keep it nice and simple. When building any motherboard, you want 1. Make sure you are using all of your circuit boosters and your circuit assists as efficiently as possible. For example, using to maximize your CPU as efficient as possible. For example, I have this circuit booster hitting 2 CPUs and a total of 6 combat chips. Given that it is 6%, you can give 6 times 6, that is a 36% boost in overall efficiency, plus 12 extra percent for the CPUs. And here I have 12%, which equals up to 24, 12, 24, 36, 48 worth of efficiency, and so on and so forth. Maxing your CPUs is highly important, as they are the highest percentage boosts on your board usually. The higher the percentage, the bigger the boost. For example, this melee damage is receiving 142% extra from efficiency. As for cells, I recommend force effect duration pretty much on everything, or TP recovery, as using your special moves and having your damage higher by force effect is highly important. With the chip evolution A, this fan here I feel is pretty much just for these special moves. For special moves on your motherboard as well, I recommend critical factor always being a factor in your builds. It just essentially increases your damage overall. Jammer pulse If you have the capacity to make multiples of it, I recommend putting on all 3 of your robots, but this is expensive and requires some grinding to do. And then a normal special move, and then a super special move. Now, I currently do not have a super special move here. However, and my humble opinion, more as the game goes on, you need dedicated builds to make special moves really pop. I recommend using things such as, oops, excuse me, pardon me, I have not played not a little rusted out. There we go. I recommend the factors. So power factor, which was essentially a force level on its own. It's not that fantastic, but it's more power if you are not using evade builds. Guard factor and shield dome are absolutely fantastic for reducing the damage you take. You deal no damage with your ass on the floor, and later you run out of essentially using your repairs efficiently is the best way to kill some bosses, in my humble opinion. Debug factor is basically the same as that with status effects. Sometimes this is necessary for some encounters, not all of them. And if you want my general okay to good to use special moves, you have multi-hit, low cost, high damage. I think that's like the best thing. So things like Frozen Break are pretty alright. Thermal Break is pretty great and top tier. Mighty March lets you get away with a lot more things that you shouldn't. I recommend playing around with it. If I'm not making a note of it, you could try it, but I do have either no opinion or I do not like it. Spark Zone is fantastic on AI. Meteor Gun Year and the rest of the star attacks are all good. Shooting Star Gun Year. Knights of Gaia is fantastic. It's fast, it brings up your force level pretty well, and the times where it actually is hitting the enemy for double its weakness, it's fantastic. The other moves up here, I do like the Megaton punches, as they are extremely fast, and the times that they are useful, they are really good. And that's all I'm going to cover for there. As for Kabuki functions, I usually once again lie on the air of utility, unless it is hitting a weakness. However, if you are willing to put in a little bit of extra work and using your robots to maximize your damage, I recommend having Million Bluff Flash on one, Absolute Defense Shield Muramasa on another, and the last one could be a flex slot for freezing a boss who's weak to ice, setting a boss on fire who's weak to fire, and other fringe cases such like that. So I have Infinity Assault Rush. The damage from these, in my experiences in Megaton II difficulty, are extremely whelming, so I err on the side of utility once again. The neural board is not imperative to progressing your power. This is pretty much squeezing the rock. I would not focus on it until like you're at really end game, as most of the other primary mechanics will increase your character's power much more. Pilots. Pilots are very important in power as well. So currently, if you are, depending on your, so overall you want broad strokes when it comes to your abilities. So for example, I have on my Reiji, he is my range damage. So I have ranged, damage to bosses, damage while aiming, firing speed while aiming, and damage for combo hits. And this all adds up. These are all level 5 abilities. And you want them all not entirely specific to what they're doing, but you want to be flexible and constantly be changing these out. So for example, if I am currently using dual blades, but I have Knuckles on, I have Knuckle Mastery on. That is such a huge DPS loss. I could be using the proper thing, and that fits for everything. If you are still in the grind, and want to rank yourself up, obviously I recommend the searches, ranged weapon searches, and all of the higher drop rate things. Overall, blanket things that are fantastic. Humanity's New Potential on Reiji. And I don't know everyone's name, so I'm just going to have some broad strokes here. All of the weapon boosts in general, so that shotgun mastery, knuckle mastery, and etc. As you can see, I'm still working on it myself. TKO pose, which is a fantastic overall increase in crit, which, you know, crit is good. Where is these last guys at? It's Kabuki function charging, damage while defeating enemies. Damage to bosses. This is one you have to grind for as soon as you get the character associated with this, whose name I can't remember. Also, with whose name I cannot remember, but damage to bosses 100% is absolutely fantastic, and I think outright required in the end game. And that's all of the notable ones. Obviously, your elemental boons and bonuses. Make sure that you are maximizing your pilots. As for the other things I will talk about in the laboratory, make sure you are upgrading and over-limiting your weapons and rogue parts, both A and B. Make sure you are developing your mods for higher mods and higher percentages. It's all about squeezing that rock. As for the motherboard and development, I will not be extremely specific on this, as this requires a bit more density. I generally err on the side of grab it when you need it. As in, so on the motherboard, there's a lot of things going on. So for example, I was running into status effects, so I went to go get resist all status effects. And customizing your motherboard in a way that is you are maximizing all your bonuses is important when you have all of these small percentages that are adding up in the long run. So make sure that you are ranking up. You're not using level 1 chips unless they are the 1 alpha, 1 beta, and etc. And make sure that you are crossing the streams appropriately to gain the max amount of bonuses. So for example, here, and here, this is receiving the highest amount of percentage bonus here from all of these fans, and this is increasing the highest percentage melee damage I have, which you want it to do. As for weapon recommendations and builds, or like as a broad stroke, dual swords are great. Heavy swords or great swords are also fantastic, but you'll have to be using all weapons. If you want to use certain weapons in other categories, such as destroy, and you are married to it, that is totally fine. So for example, if you just want to use destroy knuckles, you just have to roll for the correct, fixes. As for range really has a plethora of different and variable things that change what's good. As for, so currently with Musashi as a set bonus, it says recovers durability every 30 hit combo. So shotguns or things that hit lots of times, multiple pellets, etc., are absolutely fantastic for that set bonus. But if I was my Arthur right now, so damage for each 1 hit combo in general on this is pretty fantastic. Having a shotgun is good, but having something that fires rapidly is just as great, like a machine gun. Because or the Hydro Bazooka, which is the best ranged weapon in the game overall for broad strokes. For extra specific things, it's probably not the best, and I will concede to that, but for just getting things done, it is pretty fantastic, and equipping everybody with a Hydro Bazooka and shooting things down is a viable strategy for a while. If you can get a fantastic Hydro Bazooka that's legendary too, you could do a lot. And it's the element you want, you could do a lot. And that's like one of my biggest points of advice. If you really want to just like kind of go as hard as you can. Get a Hydro Bazooka, max out your ranged, and then make a iconic Legendary 2 or Legendary 2, set bonus for maximize damage while aiming, firing speed while aiming, all the other hubbub, and then using the damage while aiming and all the other stuff, you could cheese a lot of things. There's definitely some things that the game will not let you cheese, but in my experiences, that let me get through way more than I should have. And I'm going to conclude it all here. I hope this was enough to help you get through whatever Megaton hump anyone is going through. I might show a video of me going through a Megaton fight and showing, like, it's, at the end of the day, this is still an action game, and you can still get away with a lot by being good at it. Obviously, don't get hit and all that such, but there is a 50-50 give and take in terms of player power and player skill, at least in my opinion. And thank you.